Virgin forced to marry cruel billionaire. He claimed her one night, now he won't stop. The contract lay on the mahogany desk like a death sentence. Isabella's hands trembled as she stared at the elegant script that would sign away her freedom, her choices, her very life. Across from her, Damian Blackwood sat in his leather chair, like a king on his throne, his dark eyes watching her with the cold calculation of a predator who knew his prey had nowhere to run. "Sign it," he commanded, his voice as smooth and dangerous as aged whiskey. "Unless you'd prefer to see your father in prison for the next 20 years. Before we continue this intense story, I want to know where you're watching from today. Drop your country or city in the comments below. I love seeing our incredible community from around the world. And if you're already hooked on Isabella and Damian's story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another powerful love story like this one. Isabella's green eyes blazed with defiance even as tears threatened to spill. "You're a monster," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast office that overlooked Manhattan's glittering skyline. "Perhaps," Damian agreed, leaning back in his chair. "But I'm the monster who holds your father's fate in his hands. $2 million in embezzled funds, Isabella. That's what your father stole from my company. Sign the marriage contract and his debt disappears. Refuse and I'll ensure he rots in a cell." Isabella's mind raced as she thought of her gentle father, broken by grief since her mother's death, making one terrible decision that had led them to this moment. She thought of her younger sister, Emma, only 16, who would be destroyed if their father went to prison. She thought of the life she'd planned, art school, travel, falling in love with someone kind who would cherish her. All of it was crumbling before her eyes. "Why me?" she asked, lifting her chin despite her fear. "You could have any woman in the world. Why force me into this?" Something flickered in Damian's eyes, a flash of emotion so quick she almost missed it. But his expression remained carved from stone. "Because you're the only leverage I have over your father. And because," he paused, his jaw tightening, "because I always collect what's owed to me, with interest." Isabella picked up the pen with shaking fingers. Each letter of her name felt like a nail in her coffin. When she finished, she threw the pen down and stood abruptly. "There. You have what you want. But know this, Mr. Blackwood. You may own my name on paper, but you'll never own my heart. Never." Damian stood as well, moving around the desk with the fluid grace of a panther. He stopped mere inches from her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne, feel the heat radiating from his powerful frame. At 28, he was the youngest billionaire in New York, built like a warrior despite his tailored suits, with dark hair that begged to be touched and a face that belonged on magazine covers. "We'll see about that, Mrs. Blackwood," he murmured, his breath fanning across her cheek. "The wedding is in 3 days. My driver will take you home to pack. From now on, you live in my penthouse." 3 days? Isabella gasped. "That's impossible." "Nothing is impossible when you have my resources," he cut her off. "Oh, and Isabella, don't even think about running. I have eyes everywhere, and your father's freedom depends on your compliance." As Isabella fled his office, her heart pounding, she missed the way Damian's mask slipped. She didn't see him pull out a worn photograph from his desk drawer, a picture of a young woman with Isabella's same green eyes and gentle smile. She didn't hear him whisper, "Finally, after all these years, justice for you, Sophia." The 3 days passed in a blur. Isabella found herself swept into a world of designer wedding dresses, 5-star venues, and an army of wedding planners who created magic at Damian's command. He was absent through most of the preparations, appearing only to approve decisions with curt nods. But his presence lingered like a shadow, a constant reminder of the cage closing around her. The night before the wedding, Isabella sat in her childhood bedroom one last time, her sister Emma curled beside her on the bed. "You don't have to do this," Emma whispered, her young face etched with worry. "We can find another way to help Dad." Isabella stroked her sister's hair, fighting back tears. "There is no other way, Em. Damian Blackwood owns half of Manhattan. His lawyers are sharks. If I don't do this, Dad goes to prison, and you go into foster care. I won't let that happen." "But what about love?" What about happiness? Sometimes we sacrifice our happiness for the people we love, Isabella said softly. Mum would understand. What she didn't know was that Damien stood outside her family's modest home, hidden in the shadows. He'd come to ensure she wouldn't run, but instead found himself transfixed by the sight of her through the window, the way she comforted her sister, the strength in her delicate features, the love that radiated from her every gesture. For a moment, doubt crept into his hardened heart. But then he remembered another sister, one who died because of the Rodriguez family's betrayal 20 years ago. His jaw hardened. No, he would see this through. Isabella would pay for her mother's sins, even if she didn't know what those sins were. The wedding day dawned grey and drizzling, as if the heavens themselves mourned Isabella's fate. She stood before the mirror in her designer gown, a creation of ivory silk and lace that made her look like a fairy tale princess. But this was no fairy tale. This was a nightmare dressed in couture. "You look beautiful," her father said from the doorway, his face gaunt with guilt. "Isabella, I'm so sorry. If I could take it back—" "I know, Dad," she interrupted gently. "Just promise me you'll get help. No more gambling. No more trying to chase away Mum's ghost with bad decisions. Promise me this sacrifice means something." "I promise," he whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. The ceremony was held in the ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel, filled with New York's elite who'd come to witness the wedding of the year. Isabella felt like a lamb among wolves as she walked down the aisle, her legs trembling beneath layers of silk. But when her eyes met Damien's at the altar, something unexpected happened. For just a moment, his cold mask slipped. She saw heat in those dark eyes, a hunger that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with desire. It was gone in an instant, replaced by his usual icy control. But that glimpse shook her to her core. The vows were traditional, each word a mockery of what marriage should be. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Damien's hands were gentle as he lifted her veil. But his kiss was anything but gentle. It was possession, domination, a claiming that left her breathless and confused. As he pulled away, he whispered against her lips, "You're mine now, Isabella. Body and soul." The reception passed in a haze of congratulations from strangers, champagne she couldn't taste and food she couldn't eat. Damien played the perfect groom, his hand possessive on her waist, his attention seemingly devoted. But Isabella could feel the tension radiating from him, the barely leashed control that made her wonder what would happen when they were alone. As the evening wore on, she overheard two women gossiping near the powder room. "Can you believe Damien Blackwood finally married? I thought he'd die a bachelor after what happened with Sophia." "Shh," the other woman hissed. "You know he doesn't allow anyone to mention his sister. 20 years, and he still hasn't gotten over her death." "Well, can you blame him? The way she died and the Rodriguez family's involvement." They stopped abruptly when they saw Isabella, their faces paling. "Mrs. Blackwood, we were just—" But Isabella was already fleeing, her mind reeling. Sister? Death? Her family's involvement? What were they talking about? She found refuge on a balcony overlooking the city, the cool air a relief against her flushed skin. That's where Damien found her, his bow tie undone, looking impossibly handsome in the moonlight. "Running away already?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "Those women, they mentioned your sister. They said my family—" "Stop." His voice was sharp enough to cut. "That's not a conversation for tonight." "When then?" Isabella demanded, whirling to face him. "When do I get to know why you're really doing this? Because it's not about my father's embezzlement, is it? This is personal." Damien's hands gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles went white. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he spoke. "Your mother was Maria Rodriguez before she married your father. 20 years ago, she worked for my family as our housekeeper. She was supposed to be watching my sister Sophia while my parents attended a charity gala. But she left her post to meet with her boyfriend, your father. While she was gone, there was a fire. Sophia was only 6 years old. She didn't make it out. Isabella's hand flew to her mouth, horror washing over her. Oh my God. Damien, I had no idea. Your mother fled that night, he continued, his voice emotionless. Changed her name, married your father, started a new life. My parents never recovered. My father drank himself to death within 2 years. My mother simply faded away. And I was left alone, 8 years old, with nothing but rage and a promise that one day I would make the Rodriguez family pay. But I'm not my mother, Isabella whispered, tears streaming down her face. I didn't even know. No, Damien agreed, finally turning to look at her. You're innocent in this, but you're also the key to my revenge. Your mother is dead, beyond my reach, but through you, I can finally balance the scales. By forcing me into marriage? By making me miserable? How does that honor your sister's memory? Something shifted in Damien's expression. I don't know, he admitted, the words seeming to surprise him. I've planned this for so long, but now... He reached out, his thumb brushing away her tears with unexpected gentleness. Now I look at you and see not Maria's daughter, but Isabella. Beautiful, brave Isabella, who sacrificed herself for her family. And I find myself wondering if Sophia would approve of what I've become. The moment hung between them, fragile as spun glass. Then Damien's walls slammed back into place. Come, it's time to leave. Our flight to Santorini departs in 2 hours. Santorini? Isabella blinked in confusion. Our honeymoon, he said with a sardonic smile. We must keep up appearances after all. The private jet was another display of Damien's vast wealth, but Isabella barely noticed the luxury. She was too caught up in processing everything she'd learned. Her mother, the woman she'd idolized, had been responsible for a child's death. The weight of that knowledge sat heavy on her chest. Stop torturing yourself, Damien said from across the cabin, not looking up from his laptop. You're not responsible for your mother's actions. Then why am I being punished for them? He closed the laptop and studied her with those penetrating dark eyes. Perhaps because I've been alone with my anger for so long, I don't know how to let it go. Or perhaps because the moment I saw you in my office, something inside me recognized you as mine, and I used revenge as an excuse to claim you. Isabella's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying that this marriage may have started as revenge, but... He moved to sit beside her, his presence overwhelming in the confined space. But when I kissed you at the altar, when I held you during our first dance, all I could think about was how right you felt in my arms, how your fire calls to mine, how I want to possess not just your body but your heart, your soul, your everything. You can't just take those things, Isabella whispered, her pulse racing. They have to be given freely. Then I'll earn them, Damien said, his voice rough with desire. Starting now. He kissed her then, not with the possessive dominance of their wedding kiss, but with a tenderness that undid her completely. His hands cradled her face like she was precious, his lips moving against hers with reverent hunger. Isabella knew she should resist, should remember that this man had forced her into marriage, but her traitorous body melted against him, her hands tangling in his dark hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Damien rested his forehead against hers. Tell me to stop, he said hoarsely. Tell me you hate me, and I'll leave you alone for the rest of this flight. But Isabella couldn't speak the words, because somewhere between the contract signing and this moment, something had shifted. She saw beyond his cold exterior to the broken boy who'd lost everything, who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten how to let anyone in. And despite everything, her heart ached for him. I don't hate you, she admitted. I should, but I don't. Isabella, he breathed her name like a prayer. I'm not a good man. I'm damaged, driven by darkness you can't imagine. I'll probably hurt you, disappoint you, fail you in 1,000 ways. But I swear to you, from this moment forward, you are the most precious thing in my world. I will protect you, provide for you, worship you until my dying breath, if you'll let me. And my father, my sister. Safe, he promised. The debt is forgiven. Your sister's college will be paid for. Your father will receive the help he needs. No strings attached, regardless of what happens between us. Isabella searched his face, looking for deception, but finding only raw honesty. Why the change of heart? Because revenge is a cold bedfellow, Damien said with a rueful smile. And because my sister Sophia was full of light and laughter, she wouldn't want her memory tainted by cruelty. She'd want me to find happiness, even if I've forgotten how. Maybe we can remember together, Isabella suggested softly. The hope that flared in Damien's eyes was beautiful and heartbreaking. You would try after everything I've done? I'm already your wife, Isabella pointed out. We can either make each other miserable, or we can try to build something real. But if we do this, we do it as equals. No more commands, no more cold silences. You want my heart? Then show me yours. It's rusty from disuse, he warned, and probably damaged beyond repair. Then we'll fix it together, Isabella said, surprising herself with her certainty. But Damien, I need complete honesty. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. Can you give me that? He was quiet for a long moment, internal struggle clear on his face. Then he nodded slowly. I'll try. God help me, Isabella. I'll try. But be patient with me. I've been alone in my anger for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else. The rest of the flight passed in tentative conversation. Damien told her about growing up in the shadow of tragedy, how he'd thrown himself into building his empire as a way to avoid feeling. Isabella shared her own struggles after her mother's death, the pressure of being the perfect daughter, the dreams she'd put aside to care for her family. By the time they landed in Santorini, the sun was rising over the Aegean Sea, painting the whitewashed buildings in shades of gold and pink. Their villa was perched on a cliff overlooking the caldera, with a private infinity pool and views that stole Isabella's breath. It's beautiful, she whispered, stepping onto the terrace. Not as beautiful as you, Damien said, then actually blushed. I apologize. That was sweet, Isabella finished, smiling at his discomfort. You're allowed to be sweet, you know. It won't damage your ruthless billionaire reputation. Only with you, he said seriously. The rest of the world still gets the cold bastard. I can live with that, Isabella said, then yawned widely. Sorry, it's been a very long day. Of course, your room is through here. Damien led her to a luxurious suite with its own bathroom and balcony. I'll be in the master suite next door. There's no pressure, Isabella. We'll take this at whatever pace you're comfortable with. Isabella was touched by his consideration. The man who'd forced her into marriage was now giving her space and choice. It was a contradiction that made her head spin. Damien, she called as he turned to leave. Thank you for being honest with me, for trying. Thank you for not running when you learned the truth, he replied. Sleep well, Isabella. Tomorrow, I'd like to show you the island, if you're willing. After he left, Isabella stood on her balcony, watching the sun climb higher over the impossibly blue sea. 24 hours ago, she'd been preparing to marry a cruel stranger. Now, she found herself married to a complex man carrying 2 decades of pain, who looked at her like she might be his salvation. It should terrify her. Instead, she felt something like hope. The next few days passed in a dream. True to his word, Damien was a different man. Attentive without being overbearing, romantic without pushing for physical intimacy she wasn't ready for. He showed her hidden beaches where they swam in crystal-clear water, tiny tavernas where locals greeted him by name, sunset spots that made her artist's heart sing. You've been here before, Isabella observed one evening as they dined on fresh seafood at a cliffside restaurant. Many times, Damien admitted. It was Sophia's favorite place in the world. Our parents brought us here the summer before she died. She said the sunsets looked like God was painting the sky just for her. Tell me about her, Isabella encouraged gently. Not about how she died. Tell me how she lived. For the first time in 20 years, Damien smiled while talking about his sister. He told Isabella about Sophia's obsession with butterflies, how she'd insisted on wearing fairy wings to formal dinners, how she'd crawl into his bed during thunderstorms and make him tell her stories until she fell asleep. She would have loved you, he said softly. She always said I was too serious, that I needed someone to make me laugh. You do that, you know. Make me remember what it's like to feel joy. You make me feel brave, Isabella confessed. Like I'm more than just the responsible daughter, the caretaker. Like I could be anything. You can be, Damien said intensely. What did you want to be? Before life got in the way? An artist, Isabella admitted. I wanted to travel the world, capturing beauty on canvas. I had a scholarship to art school, but after Mom died and Dad fell apart, you gave it up to hold your family together. It wasn't a question, just like you gave up your freedom to save them from me. I'm starting to think that wasn't a sacrifice, Isabella said quietly. Maybe it was fate. The tension between them had been building all week, electric and undeniable. Every casual touch sent sparks through her body. Every heated glance made her pulse race. But Damien kept his distance, honoring his promise to let her set the pace. On their last night in Santorini, Isabella made her decision. She found Damien on the terrace, staring out at the star-filled sky with a glass of wine in his hand. Couldn't sleep, she asked, joining him at the railing. Thinking, he replied, about how different this week has been from what I planned. I thought I'd feel victorious, having Maria Rodriguez's daughter under my control. Instead, I feel free. Like I've been carrying a weight for 20 years and can finally set it down. Maybe that's what forgiveness does, Isabella suggested. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. Damien turned to her, his eyes intense in the moonlight. How did you become so wise? Pain is a good teacher, she said simply. But so is love. Love, the word came out strangled. Isabella, what are you saying? Instead of answering with words, she kissed him. Not the tentative kisses they'd shared before, but a kiss full of passion and promise. Damien groaned against her lips, his control finally snapping as he pulled her against him, one hand tangling in her hair while the other pressed against the small of her back. Isabella, he breathed against her lips. Are you sure? We don't have to... I'm sure, she interrupted. I want you, Damien, not because of any contract or obligation, but because somewhere between that horrible first meeting and this moment, I fell in love with you, with your broken pieces and your hidden gentleness and your fierce protection. I love you. Damien pulled back to search her face, wonder and disbelief warring in his expression. Say it again. I love you, Isabella repeated, her heart in her eyes. I love you, Damien Blackwood. God, Isabella, he crushed her to him, his voice rough with emotion. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. I've never, not since my family. I didn't think I could feel this way. Then show me, she whispered. Make me yours, truly yours. Not because of any contract, but because we choose each other. Damien swept her into his arms, carrying her to his bedroom with purposeful strides. What followed was a night of passion and tenderness, of whispered promises and reverent touches. Damien worshipped her body like she was a goddess, taking his time, making sure her first experience was everything it should be. And when they finally joined as one, Isabella understood what it meant to belong to someone completely, not through force or obligation, but through love. Afterwards, they lay entwined, Isabella's head on Damien's chest, listening to his heartbeat. I have something to tell you, Damien said quietly, about your father's debt. Isabella tensed. What about it? There was no embezzlement, he admitted. I mean, your father did take money, but it was a loan I'd already approved. I just manipulated the paperwork to make it look like theft. I needed leverage to force this marriage, and I knew your father's gambling debts made him vulnerable. Isabella sat up, staring at him in shock. You fabricated the whole thing. Yes, Damien said, shame clear in his voice. I'm not proud of it, but I was so consumed with revenge. I didn't care who I hurt. Can you forgive me? Isabella was quiet for a long moment, processing this betrayal. Then she lay back down, her hand over his heart. I forgive you, she said softly. Not because what you did was right, but because holding on to anger would only poison what we have now. But Damien, no more lies, no more manipulation. If we're going to make this work, we need complete honesty. I promise, he vowed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. No more lies, no more schemes. Just us, building something real. They returned to New York as a united front, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The first test came immediately. Damien's board of directors was not pleased about his sudden marriage. "She's a nobody," Isabella overheard one member saying, "a gold digger who trapped him with some sob story." "Actually," Isabella said, entering the boardroom with her head held high, "I'm the woman who married your CEO despite his attempts to destroy my family. If anyone was trapped, it was me. But I chose to see beyond his revenge to the man underneath. The question is, are you smart enough to see beyond your prejudices, to realize that a CEO capable of love is stronger than one consumed by hate?" The board member sputtered, but Damien's eyes shone with pride. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, "I believe you've just met the new head of our charitable foundation. Isabella will be overseeing our community outreach programs, something I believe will significantly improve our public image." It was the first of many battles they would fight together. Society gossips whispered about their whirlwind romance. Business rivals tried to use Isabella as leverage against Damien. Even her own family struggled to understand how she could love the man who'd threatened them. But through it all, their bond only grew stronger. Isabella threw herself into her charity work, using Damien's resources to help families affected by tragedy. She also returned to her art, setting up a studio in their penthouse where she painted the emotions Damien helped her discover. Damien, for his part, began the slow process of healing. He started therapy to deal with his survivors' guilt and anger. He reached out to his extended family, rebuilding bridges he'd burned in his quest for revenge. Most importantly, he learned to express his emotions instead of hiding behind cold control. "You've changed him," Damien's assistant, Mrs. Chen, told Isabella one day. "I've worked for Mr. Blackwood for 10 years, and I've never seen him smile the way he does when you walk into a room." "He's changed me too," Isabella replied. "He's shown me that I'm stronger than I knew, that I can be more than just a caretaker." We've changed each other. 6 months into their marriage, Damien surprised Isabella with a trip back to Santorini, but this time it wasn't just the two of them. Her father and sister came too, along with some of Damien's cousins he'd reconnected with. It was a chance to blend their families, to create new memories in a place that held such significance. "I want to renew our vows," Damien announced one evening as they all dined together. "This time with our families present, and with promises we actually mean." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to everything." The ceremony was small and intimate, held on the same terrace where Isabella had first told Damien she loved him. This time, when they exchanged vows, every word came from the heart. "Isabella," Damien said, his voice strong and clear, "I promise to love you not with possession but with partnership, to support your dreams as fiercely as you've supported my healing, to be honest even when it's difficult, gentle even when I'm frustrated, and present even when the world tries to pull me away. You are not my prisoner or my prize. You are my heart, my home, my everything." "Damien," Isabella replied through happy tears, "I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to remind you of joy when darkness calls, to challenge you when you need it, to love you not despite your scars, but because they've made you who you are. You are not my captor or my obligation. You are my choice, my partner, my forever." As they kissed, surrounded by the people they loved with the Santorini sunset painting the sky, Isabella marveled at how far they'd come. What had started as forced marriage born of revenge had transformed into something beautiful and unbreakable. That night, as they lay in bed watching the stars through the skylight, Damien pulled Isabella close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "How we began?" "No," Isabella said without hesitation. "Every path led us to this moment. The pain, the anger, the forced marriage, it all brought us together. I wouldn't change a thing. Even the contract?" "Especially the contract," she said with a smile, "though I do think we should frame it, hang it in our bedroom as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" Damien asked, amused. "That sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just the beginning of something beautiful. That love can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances. That two broken people can create something whole." "I love you, Mrs. Blackwood," Damien murmured against her lips. "I love you too, Mr. Blackwood," Isabella replied. "Forever and always." A year later, Isabella stood in her art studio putting the finishing touches on her latest painting. It depicted a phoenix rising from ashes, its wings spread wide against a backdrop of stars. She titled it Redemption. "It's beautiful," Damien said from the doorway, his eyes soft with admiration. "Your best work yet." "I had good inspiration," Isabella replied, setting down her brush. "How was the board meeting?" "Productive. We've approved funding for 3 more women's shelters and a scholarship program for children who've lost parents." He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms despite her paint-covered smock. "None of it would have happened without you. You've made me want to build something more than just wealth. You've made me want to build a legacy of love." "Speaking of legacies," Isabella said, suddenly nervous, "I have something to tell you." Damien pulled back to study her face, concern flickering in his eyes. "What is it? Are you okay?" "I'm pregnant," she blurted out, then held her breath. The joy that transformed Damien's face was like watching the sun rise. "Pregnant?" he repeated in wonder. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby," Isabella confirmed, laughing as he spun her around. "Are you happy?" "Happy doesn't begin to cover it," Damien said, setting her down gently and placing a reverent hand on her still flat stomach. "A baby, our baby. God, Isabella, I never thought, after losing Sophia, I never thought I'd have a family again." "Well, now you do," Isabella said, covering his hand with hers. "A slightly unconventional family that started with blackmail and contracts, but a family nonetheless." "The best family," Damien corrected, kissing her deeply. "My brilliant, brave, beautiful wife and our miracle baby. How did I get so lucky?" "It wasn't luck," Isabella reminded him. "It was choice. We chose to see beyond the pain to the possibility. We chose love over revenge, forgiveness over anger, hope over fear. We chose each other." "And I'll keep choosing you," Damien vowed, "every day for the rest of our lives." As they stood there in the studio, surrounded by Isabella's paintings that chronicled their journey from darkness to light, both of them marveled at the unexpected turns life could take. A forced marriage had become a love story. A quest for revenge had become a journey of redemption. 2 broken souls had found wholeness in each other, and this was just the beginning. 9 months later, as Damien held their newborn daughter, named Sophia Maria, after both sisters lost to tragedy, he whispered a promise to the universe. He would love fiercely, protect faithfully, and never again let darkness overshadow the light Isabella had brought into his life. "She's perfect," Isabella murmured from the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant. "Just like her mother," Damien replied, carefully placing their daughter in Isabella's arms. "Thank you, my love, for everything, for seeing past my cruelty to the man beneath, for teaching me that love is stronger than revenge, for giving me a family when I thought I'd lost the right to one. Thank you," Isabella countered, "for showing me that sometimes the things we think will destroy us actually save us, for proving that even the darkest hearts can learn to love, for being the villain who became my hero." As baby Sophia opened her eyes, Damien's dark eyes in Isabella's delicate face, her parents shared a look of perfect understanding. Their story had begun with force and fury, contracts and cruelty, but it had evolved into something neither had expected, a love story for the ages, proof that redemption was possible and that sometimes the most beautiful endings come from the most unlikely beginnings. "I love you," they said in unison, then laughed at the synchronicity. Outside the hospital window, New York City sparkled in all its chaotic glory. Somewhere out there, other stories were beginning, some tragic, some triumphant. But in this room, in this moment, there was only love. Love that had conquered revenge, healed old wounds, and created new life. It was more than either of them had dared to dream when they'd signed that contract in Damien's office. It was everything, and it was theirs. 5 years had passed since that hospital room moment, and the Blackwood family had grown in ways neither Isabella nor Damien could have imagined. Little Sophia, now a precocious 5-year-old with her father's determination and her mother's artistic soul, was joined by 3-year-old twins, Alexander and Emma. "Mommy, tell us the story again," Sophia demanded one evening as Isabella tucked her into bed. "The story of how you and Daddy met." Isabella smiled, sitting on the edge of her daughter's bed. "Which version would you like tonight, sweetheart?" "The real one," Sophia said, with all the seriousness a 5-year-old could muster. "Not the fairy tale one you tell everyone else." Isabella's breath caught. Sometimes her daughter was too perceptive for her own good. "What makes you think there's a different version?" "Because Daddy looks sad sometimes when people ask about your wedding, and Grandpa always changes the subject. And Aunt Emma says things were complicated at first." "You're too smart for your own good," Isabella said, buying time. She and Damien had always known this day would come, when their children would be old enough to understand the complex truth of their beginning. "Is it a bad story?" Sophia asked, worry creeping into her voice. "No, baby," Isabella assured her. "It's a story about how sometimes people make mistakes, but love can fix them. It's about forgiveness and second chances and choosing to be better. But it's a grown-up story, so I'll tell you the simple version now, and when you're older, Daddy and I will tell you everything." "Promise?" "Promise," Isabella said, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Now, once upon a time, there was a man who was very sad and very angry because he'd lost someone he loved. And there was a woman who was very brave and very kind who needed help. The man thought he wanted to hurt the woman because of something that happened long ago, but instead he fell in love with her, and she taught him how to be happy again." "And then they had me," Sophia added triumphantly. "And then they had you," Isabella agreed, "and your brothers, and we all lived happily ever after." "But it's not really ever after, is it?" Sophia said thoughtfully, "because the story keeps going." "You're absolutely right," Isabella said, marveling at her daughter's wisdom. "The story keeps going, getting better every day." After settling all 3 children, Isabella found Damien in his study, going over contracts for their latest charitable venture, a series of art therapy centers for grieving children. "Sophia asked about our real story tonight," she said, curling up in his lap. Damien's hands stilled on the papers. "What did you tell her?" "An age-appropriate version. But Damien, she knows there's more. She's too observant, just like her father." "Or like her mother," Damien countered, pressing a kiss to Isabella's temple, always seeing beyond the surface. "What do you think we should do?" "I think we wait a few more years, then tell them the truth, all of it. The good, the bad, the complicated. They deserve to know their history, to understand that love isn't always simple or easy, but it's always worth fighting for." "You're right," Damien agreed. "As usual. Have I told you today how grateful I am that you didn't run screaming from my office that first day?" "Only about 12 times, Isabella teased, "but I never get tired of hearing it." Their quiet moment was interrupted by Damien's phone. He frowned at the caller ID. "It's the investigator I hired to look into those threats we've been receiving." Isabella tensed. For the past month, they'd been receiving anonymous letters threatening to expose the truth about their marriage unless Damien paid an exorbitant sum. They'd hired a private investigator to look into it, hoping to resolve the matter quietly. "Blackwood," Damien answered, his free arm tightening around Isabella. His face darkened as he listened. "You're certain?" "Yes, I see. No, we'll handle it from here." "Thank you." "What is it?" Isabella asked as he hung up. "The letters are from David Chen, your ex-fiancé." Isabella's blood ran cold. She hadn't thought about David in years, had assumed he'd moved on with his life just as she had. "What does he want?" "Money, apparently. He's fallen on hard times, lost his job, gambling debts. He somehow found out about the original circumstances of our marriage and thinks he can blackmail us with it. But everyone already knows we had an arranged marriage," Isabella pointed out. "We've been open about that. Not about the specifics," Damien said grimly. "Not about the fabricated embezzlement charges or the threats against your father. If that came out, it could damage everything we've built, the foundation, our reputation, the children's future." Isabella stood pacing to the window. Outside, Manhattan glittered like a jewel box, but she felt none of its beauty. "What do we do?" "We face it head on," Damien said, joining her. "We've built our life on honesty and redemption. We won't let someone from your past destroy that." "It's ironic, isn't it?" Isabella said with a bitter laugh. "You forced me into marriage to punish me for my mother's sins, and now David's trying to punish us for yours." "The past has a way of circling back," Damien agreed. "But we're not the same people we were 5 years ago. We're stronger now. We face this together." The next morning, they met with their legal team and public relations advisors. The consensus was clear: pay David off quietly and make the problem go away. But Isabella had a different idea. "No," she said firmly. "No more secrets, no more shame. We tell our story ourselves, on our terms, before he can twist it into something ugly." "Isabella," their lawyer protested, "the scandal could be devastating. Your husband could face criminal charges for the false embezzlement claims. Your charity work could be undermined. Think of your children." "I am thinking of them," Isabella said. "I'm thinking about the lesson we teach them. Do we show them that you hide from your mistakes, or do you own them and show how you've grown? Damien, what do you think?" Damien studied his wife, seeing the same fierce determination that had made him fall in love with her. "I think you're right. We've spent 5 years building a life on truth and redemption. We won't compromise that now for the sake of appearances." They called a press conference for the following week. In the days leading up to it, they prepared carefully, not spinning the story, but deciding how to tell their truth in a way that honored their journey. The morning of the conference, Isabella stood before the mirror in their bedroom, adjusting the simple blue dress she'd chosen. Damien appeared behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "Are you?" she countered. "You have more to lose than I do. Your reputation, your company." "None of it matters without you and our children," Damien interrupted. "Besides, I'm tired of that story defining us. We've written a better one. It's time the world knew it." The conference room was packed with reporters, all sensing a major story. Isabella and Damien sat side by side, their hands clasped on the table, wedding rings catching the light. "5 years ago," Damien began, his voice steady, "I did something unforgivable. I used my wealth and power to force Isabella Rodriguez into marriage, fabricating criminal charges against her father as leverage. I was driven by a 20-year-old grudge, a desire for revenge that had poisoned my entire life." The room erupted with questions, but Damien held up his hand for silence. "Let me finish. Isabella had every reason to hate me. Instead, she chose to see past my cruelty to the broken man beneath. She taught me that revenge is a poison that only hurts the one holding on to it. She showed me that love could grow in the most unlikely circumstances." Isabella took over then, her voice clear and strong. "What started as the worst day of my life became the beginning of the best chapter. Yes, our marriage began under duress. Yes, Damien did terrible things in his quest for revenge. But people can change. Love can transform even the darkest hearts. We're living proof of that. Over the past 5 years," Damien continued, "we've built a real marriage, a loving family, and a foundation that's helped thousands of grieving families. We've taken our pain and transformed it into purpose. We're not proud of how we began, but we're incredibly proud of who we've become." "Someone is now trying to blackmail us with this story," Isabella added. "They think we'll pay to keep our past hidden, but we won't live in shame or fear. Our children will grow up knowing that their parents made mistakes, but chose love and redemption. That's the legacy we want to leave." The questions came fast and furious after that. Some reporters were sympathetic, others scandalized, but Isabella and Damien answered each one honestly, taking responsibility for their actions while emphasizing their growth. "Mr. Blackwood, do you expect to face criminal charges for the false embezzlement claims?" "I've already been in contact with the authorities," Damien replied. "I'm prepared to face whatever consequences come from my actions. I've also set up a fund to help other victims of similar coercion." "Mrs. Blackwood, how can you forgive someone who essentially kidnapped you into marriage?" "Because I've seen his heart," Isabella answered simply. "I've watched him work tirelessly to atone for his past. I've seen him as a devoted father, a generous philanthropist, A man who wakes up every day trying to be better than he was the day before. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing a better future. The story dominated headlines for weeks. There was backlash, of course. Some called for Damien's arrest. Others questioned Isabella's mental state, suggesting Stockholm Syndrome. But there was also an outpouring of support from unexpected quarters. Other couples who'd overcome difficult beginnings, people who'd found redemption after making terrible mistakes, those who believed in the power of second chances. David Chen tried to sell his version of the story to tabloids, but it fell flat. The Blackwoods had already told the truth, owning their narrative in a way that left little room for exploitation. Eventually, he slunk back into obscurity, his blackmail attempt having backfired spectacularly. The legal ramifications were less severe than feared. Given the time that had passed, and the fact that Isabella's father had indeed taken money, albeit with eventual permission, prosecutors declined to pursue charges. Damien paid significant fines and did community service, which he completed by expanding their foundation's reach. Through it all, their children remained blissfully unaware of the media storm. Isabella and Damien made sure their routine stayed normal. School, playdates, bedtime stories. They knew that someday they'd have to explain everything, but for now, they protected their innocence. One evening, after the chaos had died down, Isabella found Damien on their bedroom balcony, staring out at the city. "Regrets?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "No," he said, turning to pull her close. "Relief. It's all out there now. No more secrets hanging over us. We can just be." "Just be the reformed villain and his forgiving wife?" Isabella teased. "Just be Damien and Isabella," he corrected. "Parents, partners, lovers, friends. The labels don't matter anymore." "You know what the strangest part is?" Isabella mused. "I'm actually grateful to David for forcing our hand. Living openly with our truth, messy as it is, feels so much better than maintaining a perfect facade." "You've always been braver than me," Damien said. "From that first day in my office, you've pushed me to be better, to choose courage over comfort." "We've pushed each other," Isabella corrected. "That's what partners do." As they stood there, the city lights twinkling below, Isabella's phone chimed with a message. It was from her sister Emma, now a successful lawyer specializing in women's rights. "Saw the interview, proud of you both. Mom would be too. She believed in redemption, remember? Love you." Isabella showed Damien the message, tears pricking her eyes. "Do you think that's true? That my mother would be proud despite everything?" "I think," Damien said carefully, "that your mother would be grateful her daughter found love and happiness, even through pain. And I think my sister Sophia would be glad I finally let go of my anger and found peace. We honor them best by living well, by choosing love over hate." "When did you become so wise?" Isabella asked, echoing a question from years ago. "I had a good teacher," Damien replied, kissing her softly. "This brave, beautiful woman who saw past my darkness to the man I could become, who loved me not despite my broken pieces, but because of how I chose to rebuild." Their quiet moment was interrupted by the patter of small feet. Sophia appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Mommy? Daddy? I had a bad dream." "Come here, sweetheart," Isabella said, opening her arms. Sophia ran to them, and they settled on the balcony sofa, their daughter safe between them. "What did you dream about?" Damien asked, stroking Sophia's hair. "That you and Mommy went away," Sophia mumbled against Isabella's shoulder. "That we were all alone." "Never," Isabella promised fiercely. "Daddy and I will never leave you. We're a family, and families stick together no matter what." "Even when things are hard?" Sophia asked. "Especially when things are hard," Damien confirmed. "That's when families matter most." As Sophia drifted back to sleep in their arms, Isabella and Damien shared a look over her head. They'd weathered the storm of public revelation. They'd faced their past and emerged stronger. Their love, tested by fire, had proven unbreakable. "I love you," Isabella whispered. "Thank you for being brave enough to tell our truth." "I love you too," Damien replied. "Thank you for giving me a truth worth telling." The night wrapped around them like a blanket, peaceful and full of promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new chapters in their ongoing story. But tonight, they were simply a family, imperfect, honest, and bound by a love that had transformed revenge into redemption. In the end, that was their greatest triumph. Not the fortune or the foundation or the fairy tale ending, but the simple fact that two people who should have destroyed each other had instead chosen to build something beautiful. It was a love story for the ages, all the more powerful for its flawed beginning and its honest ending. And as Isabella had told Sophia, the story was far from over. It would continue with every sunrise, every challenge faced together, every choice to love rather than hate. The forced marriage had become a chosen life, and that made all the difference. Years from now, when their children were old enough to understand the full truth, Isabella and Damien would tell them everything. They'd speak of mistakes and redemption, of the danger of revenge and the power of forgiveness. They'd show them that love isn't perfect, but it's perfectible, constantly growing, evolving, becoming stronger through trials. But for now, they simply held their daughter and each other, grateful for the journey that had brought them to this moment. The virgin, forced to marry a cruel billionaire, had become a woman who chose to love a reformed man. The billionaire who'd claimed her in anger had learned to cherish her in tenderness. Together, they'd written a new ending to an old story of pain, and that ending was really just another beginning. Thank you so much for experiencing Isabella and Damien's complete journey with me, from forced marriage to chosen love, from revenge to redemption, from secrets to truth. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to join our family of story lovers. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe people can truly change? Can love really conquer even the darkest beginnings? Share your own stories of redemption and second chances below. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful love stories come from the most broken beginnings. Until next time, keep believing in the transformative power of love and the courage to tell your truth.